So, is the surge working? We are now joined by David Eisenberg from the British American Security Information Council. Mr. Eisenberg, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
Firstly, let me ask you, is that the correct criteria to use, the number of American casualties, to determine whether the surge is working or not?
No, it's in fact just about as far away as can be from the correct metric. The surge was all about providing security, not for American troops, although necessarily from the viewpoint of force protection, they obviously have to think about that, but it's to provide security for the people of Iraq so that they can go about their daily life and conduct their lives as normally as anybody else in any other society. And the fact remains that the Iraqi people continue to vote with their feet and show that they have not gotten the level of security that would allow them to do that. The very fact that you have about 15% of the Iraqi population either displaced internally or in other countries in the region is an example of that. And the fact that the number of deaths have gone down over the course of a few months is not really a good metric either. One, you're focusing on American troops, not really focusing on Iraqi population as a total. You don't have good figures on the number of Iraqis who are being killed. And furthermore, if you just look at what some of the levels of violence were back in 2006, an abnormally high level to be sure after the start of the violence after the bombing of the mosque in Samarra, we're still well above that, and that was terrible to begin with. So we're nowhere near a level of life on an everyday basis that would indicate things can go about normally. And if you don't have that, then you don't have success.
Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, much is being made of these figures in the media, especially in determining whether the surge is working or not. Is that an indication that the surge and its progress is more about American public opinion rather than real battlefield conditions?
Well, the surge is, as they say in social science, is a necessary condition, but it's not sufficient. Even the Bush administration said at the beginning of the year that the surge was an attempt to get the conditions into place to allow the political reconciliation necessary to take place. Everybody, including the Bush administration, understands that that is the key for having stability in Iraq, not what occurs tactically on a day-to-day basis between U.S. and other coalition forces and a Shiite militia or Sunni extremists or Al-Qaeda in Iraq. And the fact of the matter is that if you look at the benchmarks, and they released a progress report, as you may recall, on this earlier in the month, and the Bush administration, trying to put the best face on it, claimed that of the 18 benchmarks they had in that report, they had success on 8, didn't have success on another 8, and 2 were mixed. But when you read the fine detail, the fact is just about every benchmark was sadly lacking. They claimed they had made progress on an oil law, but that was just for exploration and production. It had nothing to do with distribution of oil revenue, for example, which is the really key issue with regard to oil law. And you could say the same thing just about every other benchmark. So yes, they're trying to put the best face on it, and most of the people, it should be noted, who are claiming success are hardly disinterested parties. For example, retired Lieutenant General John Keane was recently in the news. He criticized the Congressional Committee for ignoring the good news from the surge. But General Keane himself was one of those outside advisors who was called into the White House last December 2006. He was one of the group of people who said, well, ignore the conclusions of your own Iraq study group, which called for political reconciliation. Instead, you should send thousands of additional soldiers to Iraq. So he's hardly a disinterested party.
David Eisenberg, that's where we have to leave it. Thanks for joining us. Thank